Unfortunately, I don't believe this storm is done with us yet. Even though South Carolina's getting hit harder than we are right now, we know that this is going to come back around, and we'll be prepared for that. But I just want to make sure our citizens understand that this event is not over. And Director Stallings and General Wilson will speak more to what their efforts have been, and then certainly we have the whole team up here that can answer questions. The last thing I'd also like to say is our hardworking farmers and agribusiness folks out there, we have heard from them as well. We know that this weather event is going to affect a lot of the crops that we have in the ground, cotton, peanuts, our pecans, and certainly timber. We're aware of that, and we'll continue to monitor those efforts, as I know Commissioner Harper is doing on the ground right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Stallings. He'll go to General Wilson, and then we'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Sir. Thank you, Governor, First Lady, for being here with us today. We appreciate your efforts and the quick response. As the Governor mentioned, he signed a state of emergency on Saturday, which allowed us to move a lot of resources. I've spoken with several of you over the last couple of days, and we've talked through some of those resource allocations, but certain things that you don't think about, we're very proud of the efforts, are just by pre-positioning a lot of those currently around the state. We've got 18 water treatment facilities that are running off of generator. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot of effort, but you can't move those things during storms. And so by the governor signing these things early, that's just one resource allocation that we were able to get out there in advance, so folks have running water, they're able to get wastewater moving, and keep yesterday behind us and moving forward with some recovery efforts already. We have a lot of state resources out ready to respond. So if you have needs, as you ask, as the governor mentioned, stay off the roads so we can get our folks there. I understand it's very interesting. You want to get out there and see what damage actually occurred. You want to go check the roads out, see what trees fell, go check on property. I understand that, but the more we can keep the roads clear so that our emergency responders can get in there, the better off we are. And the last thing I'll say from the State Operations Center is, just because, as the governor mentioned, the center of this storm has created a little bit of downtime for us to get in there, we stand ready and are going to continue to monitor. So we're not going to let this little bit of downtime make us think that we're out of the woods yet. So there's still a lot of water to come. We do have a lot of resources out there, and we are ready to handle whatever's coming. With that, I'll turn it over to Major General Wilson.
Sir, thank you. Hey, well, good morning. Hey, so this morning we've got about 300 soldiers and airmen that are postured forward in our local armories, and from southeast Georgia all the way north to Augusta, just standing by to provide whatever support is required. We're certainly, our capability and capacity is scalable. The governor's authorized up to 2,000 guardsmen if needed, so we're ready to respond if required. We're really focusing on manpower, additional manpower. We've got lots of high-wheeled vehicles, and we've got a pretty robust logistics capability within the Georgia National Guard, so we're certainly ready to provide whatever support is required. All right, sir, thanks.
Anybody got any questions for any of this group or myself?
Update on the port?
Yeah, ports are closed right now, Brunswick, Savannah, and Charleston. And from what Director Stallings was saying, Charleston's probably going to be closed for a while. They're getting a lot of rain right now. But that's what we'll continue to work with the Coast Guard on. Also, you know, bridges with DOT inspections and other things. And but right now they're closed.
Governor, as the sun's coming up, is it turn out to be what you expected, more of a flooding event and not a wind event? Is that maybe Director Stallings talk about that?
Yeah, do you want to speak more of that, or Will?
Yeah, and as Will has briefed, it has definitely been a rain event. We never anticipated high winds for extended periods of time. We knew this was going to be a water event, so that's the majority of how our resources were prepared to respond. We just copious amounts of rain.
I know you were saying that right now, and it's hard to predict, but the rain with recovery could be weeks. With where we're at right now, is it still looking like that? And Governor, will this state of emergency continue through that time?
Well, I may let Will speak to how long he thinks the event. I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of flooding will be a day, 2 days, 3 days after is you know, rivers and creeks crest, and we see the full effects of the storm. But we'll have the state of emergency as long as we need it. I can guarantee you that. And this team will be working every single day as long as we need it. I mean, I think we've been very fortunate in some ways that we're getting a little break right now and are able to go in, and the loss of power that we had with some of the stronger winds, hopefully we won't see any more of that. It'll just be a rain event, which there's a lot of issues with that, very dangerous with trees falling and other things that people need to be very aware of. But hopefully if we can get back in today, and I know our power crews, I know Kim Green with Georgia Power is on the ground today. Our EMCs are working, our contractors, so if we can get power back on, hopefully we don't have a storm event where people are without power and, especially the ability to cool themselves in these hot days, for a week or 2 weeks like we've seen with other storms. So in that way, we're fortunate. But we also, I think the message from Director Stallings and the whole team is like, this is not over. I know it seems like it may be in some ways, but there's a really bad model that shows us getting another 8 inches of rain, which will have some devastating effects in a lot of ways, and we just need to be prepared for that. Will, do you want to speak more to what you're seeing on the weather?
So as the governor mentioned, there's some very reliable models that are showing a better scenario for us, and that would be reflected in the National Hurricane Center's track, where by Thursday, the center of the storm that's currently off of our coast will be moving into the Carolinas, and we'll start to see the rain move out of Georgia. If that were the case, we would see another 4 or 5 inches of rainfall in Savannah from the wraparound moisture before that happens. There are also reliable models, one in particular the American GFS model, which has had a good handle on this storm from the beginning, that's showing a potential stalling off the coast, and then on Thursday, potentially the center moving back into Georgia, which would create a worst case scenario for us where we could see another 8-9 inches of rain in and around the Savannah area. Both models are showing us clear by Saturday, so the question really is, are we going to start seeing conditions rapidly improve by Thursday or by later on Friday into Saturday? But this weekend looks good for recovery efforts and certainly into early next week.
Initially, there had been some concern about catastrophic flooding, and particularly in communities that had not seen that level of flooding before. Are you still looking at that based on the models? As you said, you don't want people to be lulled to a false sense of security.
Yeah, to me it looks like the threat of catastrophic flooding in Georgia is probably much less likely now than we thought it could be a couple days ago. I do think that the catastrophic threat is now shifted more into South Carolina. But for instance, in Savannah during Hurricane Matthew in 2016, they saw 17 inches of rainfall. That's more in line with what we're thinking for a worst case scenario. At this point, they're already halfway there. So if we do see that storm track further inland over the next couple of days, we could start to approach that level. So it wouldn't be historic, it wouldn't be catastrophic, but it would certainly be a high-end event.
Have there been evacuations, and are you expecting that?
So there have been some medical facilities, nursing homes, senior living facilities on Tybee Island and a couple places that we did have evacuations not ordered but highly recommended and supported. So we were ounce of prevention beats a pound of cure in those scenarios. So we were there, but we didn't have an evacuation order in place.
Director, if it's that worst case, what kind of flooding do you expect? Is it inland? Is it just on the coast, or just low-lying areas, or what would that actually mean, like logistically, or even getting supplies, and what does that mean?
Yeah, with a slow-moving system like this, where those heavier bands start to set up, which is difficult to see before it happens, we would expect to see a flash flooding threat. As the governor mentioned, the rivers are forecast to crest in southeast Georgia over the next couple of days, so we could see some moderate to major river flooding as well. And in any urban areas closer to Savannah, you can also get some buildup and some quick rising flooding waters with that.
It sounds like people won't really be able to be boots on the ground with recovery, and obviously power is slow moving until about Saturday, to your predictions.
Well, I'll let Director Stallings speak to that, because I think we got boots on the ground now in some places. It's just we're having to come in behind the storm. So we're able to work in areas now when you see on the radar where it's not raining, and you don't have the green bands right there. I mean, there's power crews out that are working. If the winds get too high, they can't work in that environment in bucket trucks. But right now, I think they are out there working, restoring powers. The issue is if the storm moves back and heavy rains come back in and they're unable to work. So that's why we're asking people to be patient with us, try to stay off the roads, let us get in there, let the DOT and Forestry Commission and DNR strike teams with chainsaws get in there and clear the roads. So we get the utility companies in there, get emergency vehicles in there, and do what we need to do. If there's any kind of search and rescue that we need to do, either now or into the future, that we're able to do that, and let us get as much as we can done before this storm comes back and hits us again. Hopefully, hopefully it doesn't do that. But we have to prepare and warn people that it's likely that that is going to happen. But as long as it's safe to work, we'll have people on the ground doing that work.
Governor, you mentioned some of the crops that you're monitoring. Do you have any sense for potential losses at this point?
No way to tell. I mean, we're just keeping our fingers crossed right now. I mean, it's just going to depend on what area they are, how much rain they've got, and what stage the crop is in, and what kind of wind damage they had. And that's something that Commissioner Harper's working on now, and we'll stay in touch with his team, but very preliminary for us to know any kind of damage or figures yet. All right, well,
Have there been any search and rescue efforts or anyone needing high water rescue or anything like that? Yeah.
not at this point.
Just the one death.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you, everybody. We'll keep you updated.